Most enterprise teams are stressed about the same thing. Which AI provider do we bet on? Is it OpenAI, Anthropic, Gemini? Divyansh thinks the answer is all of them. Divyansh is a solo developer in the Canopy program at Founders Inc. right now, building Overlay, an open source AI workspace that pulls together every frontier model, every integration, every AI feature in one place. He built it across web, desktop, mobile, and a Chrome extension by himself with the assistance of our Composio SDK. What I love about this conversation is Divyansh came to AI from a completely different direction than most founders. Biomedical engineering at Johns Hopkins, then hardware, then VR, and now this. And his whole thesis across everything he's built is that an interface is what limits how fast a technology actually spreads. We get into vendor lock-in, why the cost of not switching compounds over time, and the 3 things he'd tell every founder not to get wrong when building with agents. Hope you enjoy this conversation. Hi, Divyansh. So I want to ask you the first question, which is, what are you building at LayerNorm? And yeah, tell me all about it.
Hi, Julia. I am building Overlay, which is an all-in-one AI workspace of sorts. So if you've used ChatGPT or Claude, it is basically one place to get all your best models, all your personal context, and every AI feature that you want to use, like agents, automations, and have just one place to run it. And it's also like cheaper and open source. So it can be extended upon, it can be customized to your needs or your enterprise's needs. And yeah, that's kind of what it's like, a one-line summary of Overlay.
And so what does day one look like for your users? What do they do they can't do before?
Yeah, it's so I initially built Overlay for power users who sort of like have multiple AI subscriptions, let it be like ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity or Gemini, Grok, and they were like managing multiple subscriptions, and it was supposed to be like a subscription aggregator. But very soon I realized that like the problem is not being able to access all of the best models. It is usually these interfaces that each of these providers has. They have one feature that the others don't, and that one feature is very important to one user. So it would become like the vision sort of expanded into making a workspace that had all the best features from all the best providers and all the models. And it would also end up being cheaper because many of the SOTA models, like state of the art, are extremely expensive. And we're also getting like these open source models that are just as intelligent, put on hyperscalers for cheaper inference and faster inference, and they would not people would not even know of them. Like even here, like as techno optimist a place as Founders Inc., I asked people if they know about Kimi K 2.6, and many people did not even hear about it. To make any person AI native, it is important to know of the best models and to also know what they can do with AI. And Overlay is intending to be that place that they could just go to and become AI native. And day one sort of looks like being able to work across models, make notes that are then inferred into their chats, extending their capabilities using like integrations from Gmail, Slack, Notion, and being able to run automations.
Wow, that's really cool. And how have your past experiences set you up for success to be building this?
Yeah, it's funny because and I get teased about this sometimes, but I kind of take it as a compliment. I did my engineering from Johns Hopkins, and I did biomedical engineering from Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, and it happens to be the number one university in the world to do biomedical engineering. And I basically have worked with every single layer of interfaces. I've worked on in ear EEG earbuds to get EEG from your ear canals. That's PCI plus wet lab plus hardware. I've also worked on concussion games in VR for concussion recovery, VR games for concussion recovery. So that's software plus hardware. And then I've now graduated to just software. So I built an open source clone of WhisperFlow last year in my summer crowd surfing in San Francisco. And now I've graduated to becoming like the open source interface layer for AI and making that my full-time thing. Usually I've heard people go in the opposite direction. They go from B2B SaaS to consumer SaaS to hardware to like wet lab or like biological stuff. I've gone the exact opposite direction. But the one thing that sort of ties them all together is that they are all interface layer, all interface based. So I've always been obsessed with like making interfaces because that is usually what the end consumer interacts with, and the goodness of the interface is almost the limiting factor of the ability to disseminate a technology into the world, and how positive an opinion a person has on a technology. Before the iPhone came about, those Blackberries and like those keypad tools were just like they were just that, tools. They became ecosystems after the iPhone sort of extended them into the interface that they've become today. So I've kind of been obsessed with interfaces, and that's sort of primed me to make an open source interface for AI.
Awesome story. And
Yeah.
so here's what I keep hearing from enterprises. They're scared to go all in on any one AI provider. Is this a real problem, or is it mostly just anxiety? What are your thoughts?
It is extremely real. I will tell you this because I was talking to an enterprise, a very large enterprise, I think 3,000 people, only 3 days ago. They felt this acutely. The head of the enterprise actually had contacts at Anthropic and OpenAI that could give them subsidized API pricing. But what they didn't realize is that what they sort of realize is that if they were to lock themselves into this one model provider and their interfaces and their APIs and the way they do things are not they are not going to be they're not going to be well positioned if the state of the art changes and if the best model changes. What if Claude Opus 4.7 was what if Claude Opus 4.7 was not the best coding model? What if GPT 5.5 was not the best at reasoning? What if an open source model happened to be better at either of those things? What if Gemini wasn't the best at image understanding? Then you have this problem of vendor lock-in that becomes a true constraint for how your company is sort of adopting AI. And that is why I'm so bullish on like aggregator businesses. Overlay essentially is an aggregator business where it aggregates the best models, it aggregates your personal context from all the places that you hold your personal context, all your integrations, an aggregator of all the AI features that an enterprise could need. So I'm super bullish on that. It's a very real need, and the enterprises who aim to be AI native are acutely aware of this.
If someone is already deep in, say, OpenAI's ecosystem, why would they even bother switching to something modular?
I think my best argument for this, and I think in how many ever customer interviews I've had, this has been validated to the T, is that the one-time cost of switching to an aggregator, the one-time cost of switching to an aggregator decreases greatly over time. Like the marginal cost, it goes to zero almost entirely, because once you've switched to an aggregator, you can also use the model that you were previously locked into if it happens to be very good at something else. But then you have so many other options to be able to use for anything and everything. It is a one-time cost that is worth bearing, that only divides itself with time. But the marginal cost of not switching, the opportunity cost of not switching, only compounds as the capabilities of AI increase in other models, or some other interfaces become better, or some other features become better. So let's say if I'm an enterprise locked into OpenAI, if I were to not switch to overlay, I would miss the 20 times cost reduction that Kimi K2.6 gives me, or the image understanding that Gemini gives me, or the unbiasedness that Grok gives me. Switching once would, of course, bear some cost with it, but in the asymptote, it would just diminish to zero. If I were to not switch, by losing out on these many features, and of course they build up. Other companies are not going to slow down. This is the worst AI is ever going to be. You're almost guaranteeing that your AI or that your company would not be as AI native as it could be, because you're sort of locking in and paying compounding marginal costs for not switching.
And where do you see this going in 2 years? What does winning architecture for enterprise agents look like?
Yeah, I have very strong opinions on this, and Overlay is almost built entirely on those strong opinions, which is it would have to be the winning architecture would have to be extensible. It could be extended upon by the enterprise itself for their own needs. It should be customizable. So the existing solutions could be customized, which is largely taken care of by virtue of being open source, in my opinion. And it should also be an aggregator that aggregates the best models, aggregates the best services, and you could build that in house. But if there are existing solutions that you could white label and customize and extend, you have no reason to. So this is not only a winning solution for a company that wants to adopt AI, it is also a winning solution for a company that wants to develop AI, because their development costs have been cut by a good margin. Their operation costs have been cut by a good margin to maintain that architecture, aggregating customizable, extensible interfaces or architectures. will win in the next 2 to 3 years, in my opinion.
And what are those architectures? Like, what are those products that companies could use instead?
Yeah, I think across every single feature that at least I have built in overlay, I have looked at an aggregator. The reason why so many companies now call Open Router or Versal AI Gateway instead of the OpenAI API or the Claude API or the Perplexity API individually is because these aggregator services provide a unified platform. They provide one single API. If you want to integrate five different models into your solution, before this you needed 5 different APIs with 5 different rule sets, with 5 different rate limiting conditions, with 5 different parameters that you had to take care of, with something like the Versal AI Gateway or Open Router, or in the case of integrations, my favorite, Composio. I cannot tell you how core a part of the product is Versal AI Gateway and Open Router and Composio. Literally, this is a guesstimation, but like 50% of everything I use overlay personally for uses a tool call uh that it directly takes from Composio. And the reason why these companies win is because they operate on the assumption that more models is better, more services are better. Having them all under one roof, in one solution, in one place is better. It just has taken so much operational overhead and cognitive load away from me that I can just focus on the core product. Yeah, this is a story I think is worth telling. This is Founders Inc. I'm in Founders Inc. And they had a dev day where Composio happened to come into to our offices just to support developers. And I did not even need the swag. I didn't even want the swag. I just wanted to go and tell the team how much time and money they've saved me in building overlay. I'm a solo developer who has built overlay across 4 surfaces now: the web, Mac OS, which is desktop, Windows, Electron, so cross platform, iOS, Android, so web, desktop, mobile, and a Chrome extension. And each one of them treats my one API as a single source of truth. And this one API just calls Versalia Gateway, Open Router, and Composio. And the first time I actually integrated Composio, I didn't even know this. They had a sandbox feature built in it. They had a workbench feature that executed code for me, which was so magical because I didn't even expect it to. And that was the first wow moment I had in many months of going deep into software. And so I just went to thank them for making such a wonderful product. I will tell you this. I think there are like around 150 teams in Founders Inc., somewhere around there. I could be wrong, 120 to 150-ish. I have whichever team is doing anything remotely related to software where they integrate services. I have actively evangelized people to use these 3 services, which is Vercel, AI Gateway, Composio, and Open Router. Vercel AI Gateway more than Open Router because Vercel AI Gateway does not have a platform fees. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of such services.
Wow, thank you for such kind words. The team's gonna love to hear that. And so, kind of reiterating, what's the thing Composio does that you just can't replicate by stitching together a bunch of other tools?
I've thought a lot about this because as someone building an open source solution as a solo dev, I've always had the impulse to think, why cannot this be built in house? And I've built many things in house that I could just outsource to an API, including my own memory system. And there exist many memory systems out there that are very good. That of course have competitive advantage because they just focus on memory. The reason why I made memory system on my own is because it is a core part of the product which I could manage, and enterprises that adopt overlay would need to customize and extend. The reason why I thought about making my own integrator of MCP tools or making my own aggregator of MCP tools, but didn't choose to do so is, one, to be useful, you need many tools in one place. I know Composio, like at least the ones I use into my platform, even without an auth config, Composio has around 400 of those tools. And with an auth config, they have even like, I think, closer to 800, which is nuts, by the way. If I were to be expected to make files that do that, it would not only take more time on my end, it would not only probably lead to more bugs on the system, it would probably also lead to worse user experience. Because let's say I don't integrate Gmail well enough. That is such a core thing people use that if I messed up, my user experience would tank. And especially with consumer or business oriented software products, it only takes one bad experience to hurt retention. and retention is the name of the game. I'm obviously going up against people like at OpenAI or Anthropic. They're already behemoths in the AI space. The only way I can get any ground is by being open, extensible, customizable, and having very, very good retention. And last of all, there are a lot of benefits that coming from being an aggregator service that operates at scale. You can negotiate better prices, better API prices with each of the providers that I as a one person team just can't. Uh, not only is it not not only is the return of interest not only is the rate of return not good enough, it is also actively against my best interests to focus on that more than the core product, which is chat, files, context, automations, and agents. Also, Positio has a fantastic free tier. Like they have very generous free tier. I'm still on the free tier, and it is more than enough to help startups get off the ground. If I were to be integrating separate services into my into overlay natively, I would have to manage these APIs one at a time. And for 400 integrations, that would mean 400 APIs, 400 accounts I would have to create, 400 400 different auth configs, which is just not, it's just not possible. I really deeply reason about this from first principles. It's just not viable. Sure, it's possible. It's just not viable for any team that values moving fast. Yeah, which is why Composio saved me a bunch of time, and I'm so grateful.
If a founder or enterprise dev is watching this and they're building with agents right now, what's the one thing you tell them not to get wrong?
There's so many things.
What are a few
But
top 3 things?
top three things. One, make it open source. Two, be an aggregator and a customizable and extensible solution. Three, do not make things natively that you can white label and that are good solutions to white label. Especially if you're at a startup or an enterprise, there is immense incentive to choose solutions that solve a massive part of the problem at a fraction of the cost. The reason why aggregator services also win is economies of scale, as I mentioned previously. Use that. Do not be arrogant and think, "Oh, I could just make that." I think that's a fool's errand to think you could be an aggregator of everything and also manage that. You might think, "Oh, I'm decreasing long term running costs." No, you're increasing long run cognitive load. You're increasing long run operational costs for maintenance, because all software that you make, you also have to maintain. With something as important as MCP, security is so paramount. Oh my god, every day in the news, you hear an MCP server, call gone wrong, and it compromised secrets because it wasn't integrated properly. With people like Composio actively taking care of it, I have never had to worry about that happening. Yeah, yeah. So those three things would be very, very. If possible, make it open source. If possible, make it modular and extensible. And three, do not build things in house that you could white label easily.
That's amazing. Last question. What are you most looking forward to for yourself and for also the industry moving forward?
Yeah, for myself, I would love. I think the product is at a mature stage right now. Now it's distraction mode. I'm just reaching out to enterprises, reaching out to um uh, to to uh, to institutions that are in regulated industries like education, healthcare, law, and finance, that would benefit from making their own AI solution in within their premises, but also white labeling a solution so that their development costs go down to basically zero. So it's just in traction mode right now. I'm loving my time in San Francisco in Founders Inc. They've been nothing but fantastic to me. And also being around such cool people is bound to make you excited all the time, right? As for the industry, here are my bold predictions. Open source models are going to gain parity in intelligence with the best closed source models very, very soon. In which case, at the risk of sounding like a broken horn, it becomes so much more important to offer all of those models in one place, offer all AI services that humans and agents use in one place. And three, as the cost of producing software goes to zero, software is going to be innately customizable, and it would need to be extensible to even stand a chance in the market. And fourth, open source and aggregator solutions are going to be valued much more highly because of that fact, because of things commoditizing, so that when there's equal access, the solution with the best access wins. And the best access is in solutions that aggregate services. Yeah, those are my hopes and expectations of the industry.